Hey, Joe, thanks for joining me this afternoon to talk about you and your business.
Thank you, Eamon.
What, why don't we start right off with, tell us a little bit about you and how you kind of got into your consulting, coaching. Tell us a little bit about it.
So I'm a presentation trainer and a media trainer. I teach people how to speak in public. I teach people how to speak to an audience of 1 or 10,000. Doesn't really matter. And most of my career was as a journalist. I continue to write books, but mostly I was a magazine editor. So I was very used to taking long, maybe sometimes complicated, winding stories, simplifying them, condensing them, taking the reader through that, let's call it a journey, in a way that they could comprehend. And that set me up very well to do what I do today. It gives me a strong foundation in content development and, how to tell stories, how to hook an audience quickly, how to go on a tangent so that they can follow you, and how to get out so that you're memorable. All that stuff is really the basis of any magazine story, any book, and any really riveting presentation or keynote. Make sense?
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. So you started your career writing, journalism. Was there a moment where you decided to start, coaching people to
Oh,
enhance
yeah.
their,
Yeah.
yeah.
There were definitely many moments. One was that I was aging out of the magazine business. It was very clear to me that I was done. I had done it for whatever, 25 years and had run my course. Secondly, the one day when I knew it was true it was like late at night, one closing night. It was like 11 o'clock. I walked out. I had closed the magazine and I saw my assistant reading an article on the very same topic that was already online. And it was going to take another week for that magazine to come out. So I already knew the game was over. I already knew that magazines were never going to be able to compete with this immediate technology called the internet. I needed to do something new. And I sort of stumbled my way into here. And I had, after I left magazines, I started an ill-fated PR company with a friend and a colleague, and I didn't really enjoy it. But what I enjoyed was training people to speak to media so that they would be quotable, so that, all the effort spent on getting them that media appearance would actually yield some fruit, because a lot of times they just weren't ready. So we worked, we refined, and I realized that it was quite innate to me and that I really love that work, that it was sort of a mix of knowing what to do in terms of storytelling, but also how to guide somebody and how to coach somebody in a way that, held on to their insecurity, didn't barrel through it, but enabled them to get over it.
That's very interesting. So your next step was PR company, ill-fated perhaps, and then but in that you found something that really worked well. So I guess tell us a little bit about, what you're doing now, how you're doing it, the
Yeah,
clients that you have, et cetera, because
sure.
it's very
So
interesting.
I work on, on very different tracks. So if you're doing media training, it's a lot about, I'm going to tape you. You're going to look at yourself. You're going to know exactly what you don't do well. You're going to see it. I don't need to be very critical. You're going to see it on that screen. And then we work on how to have more presence in terms of camera, how to, interesting things to say, how to synthesize what you're saying so that it doesn't go on for 5 minutes because that's not going to work today anymore. That just doesn't work. How to speak with the headline first, really, so that you could give the big picture first and then go into the details. A lot of people, when they're in their professional lives, are so caught in the details of things, right? That they can't synthesize, and they don't know how to conceptualize for that audience. Right? A presentation is a different beast, but it's the same principles, really. Okay. Who are you? What do you, and the thing about the presentation is most people get really worried about my slides or getting lost or going off track. And that's really not the big thing. The big thing is, what do you have to give to the audience? How can you give them something that they need but don't expect? Right? Because most presentations are really boring
Mm.
and they're not audience centric. They're more about me centric. Okay. I have found this to be true. And that's not saying people are ego driven. They just don't have the right frame for it, right? So I really try to say, look, there's whatever, 300 people there. What do you want them to take away from you? What's the big thing? And by the way, how many details do they really need? Most people, the attention economy is a real thing and we are overloaded. So there's a real process we go through. Both media training and presentation training are frameworks that we follow to ensure that people come out of it on the other end. Having learned this, look, I have a terrible business model because basically I show you how to do it and then you don't need me anymore. So it's a really a stupid business model, but it's what works for me and it works for clients. So there you go.
And you're passionate about it,
Love
clearly.
it.
And
Love it.
it's also incredibly interesting. I have a ton of questions to ask you specifically about what you do, but I guess I'll try to distill it down to one big one. Are there like certain character traits that you see when you have a client that you take a look at that and you say, hey, this guy or gal is going to be very easy to work with. They're going to get it quickly. And vice versa. Are there character traits or personality traits that you see that, when you see them, you're like, hey, this is going to be a much harder task there. You understand what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. Well, yes. I'm not sure they're personality traits. They may be more habits. So people who are experienced taking the stage, that doesn't mean they're good. Okay. But they're experienced. Okay. Well, they know what they do. And a lot of times they don't want to do it differently, but they've hired me and, they know that some change has to happen. So I'm not going to answer your question directly. I think what's true is if you have an ability or desire to learn and you're willing to be vulnerable, you're going to succeed. If it has to be your way or the highway, you'll be able to do a speech, but you may not grab the audience in the way that I would like you to grab the audience. Okay.
Mhm.
Just fully. So I think that's really the difference is vulnerability, willing to learn, knowing that, look, most people hire me because it's painful. Creating a presentation and delivering it is often very painful. Some people say it's, the most anxiety producing thing on earth next to death. If, if you want to assuage some of that pain, if you want to make it a little easier and maybe have a little more fun, work with me. Work with me. I'm not the kind of coach that says my way or the highway, do it this way. Here's my philosophy, which is I'm going to give you a bunch of tools. Let's try out and try on all of those tools and find the things that work for you, right? Some people are very shy and they're fantastic presenters. It's not about, it's really interesting. It's not about being gregarious. It's not about being an introvert or an extrovert. It's really honing in on what it is you have to say and then walking through ways of getting people to really experience it and understand it and activate it.
Very interesting. I could see that people who are set in their ways or perhaps are a little stubborn would be the harder ones to coach, as in, probably any type of coaching. You talked a little bit about some of the tools you use to help people get to the level that they want to get to. Can you talk us through some of the tools you use to either help your clients, whether that's technological or systems based, and then also to actually like run your business?
Very few uh, technological tools, actually. So the camera is a very powerful tool. And that happens when I'm training either on screen or in person. The camera is fantastic. You need it. You see everything on the camera. Okay. And as I said to you, I don't need to be very critical. You will definitely be more critical of yourself. You'll also be, what's always interesting is people hate the way they sound because when we speak, we have to go through a lot of caverns so we think we sound like one thing, but when you hear yourself on a camera, well, you're actually hearing what the world hears, right? Because you're not hearing all the stuff inside of your head and your skull. You don't hear those echo chambers. So that's always quite interesting is just that moment of like, oh, that's how I sound. Oh, that's how I look. What am I doing with my body? Why is my posture so shitty? Why are my hands always flying around? Why am I always scratching my head? All your tics come to be revealed very, very quickly. I don't use a lot of technology in what I do other than recording people and playing it back to them. It's really a human connection. And there's not a one one-size-fits-all process because everybody's different. Everybody has different challenges. And that's just the fact. I'm pretty good at identifying your challenges for you so that we can address them pretty quickly. And I'm pretty good at having workaround, right? So I'll show you what to do with your hands, for example, or how to modulate your voice so that the person at the end of the room can really hear it. Or if you need to look really confident, I will talk about your body language and what's betraying that confidence to the audience. How I run my business is pretty simply. I still have an accountant, so they do my billings. I like to have an accountant. I sort of feel like that's my gift to myself, having endured a working life of 30 some odd years, 40 some odd years, right? I don't do my own billing, but really it's a very modest operation. I mean, sometimes I'll use HubSpot for client generation and lead generation, but most of my business is word of mouth, and one happy client refers me to another happy client. I'm a
Mhm.
pretty bad marketer. I will do public webinars and seminars to get people interested. I'm going to do one on AI. I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but artificial intelligence versus authentic intelligence and how to use the two together so that you're not just having robots speak, right? And how to blend your insights, your point of view, your learnings into the final presentation so that it really does sound like you, not just some data gathering. I think
That's very
that's like I am really simple.
I mean, the AI part and your thesis, like AI versus authentic, that's very interesting. I'd love to get your take. Obviously, AI is a huge emerging trend right now,
Oh yeah.
and everybody's using it, or everybody should be using it. What is your take on it, and how do you think it could be best leveraged to improve communication or presentations in general?
Well, my take on it is that it is a useful adjunct. I think of it as my bitch or my executive assistant. And that's how it needs to be used right now. It cannot be relied upon to deliver something that, well, as I said, feels authentic. I don't know what I'm going to call this seminar, by the way, so don't quote me on it. But to feel authentic, you need to have insight and you need to have lived experience. You need to have something that you rely on so that it's not just abstraction. One of my cardinal rules is that the specific is more memorable than the abstract. So if you speak in an abstraction, it's really helpful to give a specific example, how it plays out in the real world. Okay? People, that's what sticks in the brain, in the memory, right? Abstraction is like it goes in one ear and out the other. We understand it, but we don't hold it. We don't get a mental picture. And to be memorable, you need to have mental picture. This is sort of very basic cognitive science, really simple stuff that I apply to communication because it's absolutely key.
Yeah, I that's a very interesting way to put it. So being able to relate the data to like a real life scenario is what's going to ultimately stick with people who you're delivering, your communication to is essentially a big takeaway there.
Yeah, but an AI doesn't have that. It doesn't have audience, the ability to analyze an audience and to know who you're speaking to, right?
Yeah.
That's always a crucial thing. Okay. You can give the same presentation, but it should shift it should shift. Doesn't have to change completely given the composition of the audience, right? So AI can't do that. AI can't assess. You can help prompt it and you can train it, but listen, unless you're an author or have a lot of tapes or a lot of written material in your body of work, it's going to take a while to train that AI. I'm lucky I'm an author. I have stuff that I've written. So it understands a little bit more about me, a little bit more. Still quite a generalist. It doesn't really understand a lot of nuance yet. I'm sure at some point it's going to be. And then there will be no need for me.
Well, I hope that's not the case.
I hope it's not the case too, but I'm
Because there'll always be a need for a human. I believe, maybe just, we're going to be more enabled by AI, continuously in the future. And I've got to ask, since you are an author and you have a history of written word, have you trained perhaps ChatGPT or one of the other LLMs on your written word to be able to produce, you know, information or writings on your behalf? Like how has that worked? Have you done it? Have you not? What do you think about that?
I think it's something I need to do more of, and I have done it, and I have used it as a beginning. And I think that's how AI needs to be used as a draft. Okay. One thing I think it is really useful for is as a sparring partner. So I wrote a presentation the other day that I had to deliver, and I wasn't quite sure the audience makeup. It was to an ad agency, um, about 80, 90 people. So I said to it, okay, here's the presentation. Hit me with all the confusing questions that might come up or all the points of confusion that might come up from it. And that was useful. It enabled me to take it on and almost preclude the questions in the presentation. So that was a really good use of AI that I think people should avail themselves of. Once we all figure out what it is and how to use it really well and who uses it well and who doesn't use it well. The funny thing about AI is I've noticed it has these catchphrases that'll throw in there and they'll sound really good. And the minute you think about them, you go, wait a second, that's bullshit. That doesn't have any meaning at all. It's clever. It's a clever use of words, but damn, it just doesn't make sense. And I think there's these AI isms. I'm actually creating an AI checklist right now, like run your presentation through these different filters to make
Hmm.
sure that you've eliminated words that have no meaning or certain phrases that AI uses a lot. On one hand, this, on another hand, that. I think of it as like a fence sitter. It's not definitive. It's like on one hand, this, on the other hand, that. You could do it this way, you could do it that way. That's what I'm getting back anyway. So I'm playing with that. Okay.
Yeah. I've noticed even using it for my emails, it just can make a very simple email much longer than it needs to be and puts a lot of fluff in there. So I have to ask you, when you're working with your clients, you already mentioned that there's some people that, might be challenging to have adopt what you're looking to have them adopt. When you deal with those types of clients or challenges in adoption in general of what you're trying to teach, like how do you deal with that? Do you have any tips and tricks on how you get people to kind of get to your point of view? Or is it, hey, if they don't want to, you can't lead a horse to water?
Well, I don't want to, look, I want you to be your authentic self. Okay. I really do. But I also want you to connect with that audience. So those are two things, right? You have to be true to yourself, but you have to connect. And I really focus on connection. And I think I'm going to offer you various ways to connect maybe more deeply or quickly with the audience. If you want to use them, great. Like, I don't like starting presentations with, here's what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to show you okay. I find that a real turnoff. Now, I like to start somewhere in the middle, grab your attention, and then come back and tell you what I'm going to talk about and why it's going to change your life. Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, not everybody is comfortable doing that. And I have really noticed this. And the corporate culture may not allow for that too. Some corporate cultures really demand ABC. So
Hmm.
I have to be mindful of that. And I have to say to the person, are you willing to maybe rock the boat by doing it this way? And if you're not, that's fine. We'll do it your way. I don't want to impose anything on you. You're the person standing up there whose reputation is often not dependent on this, will be influenced by this presentation. You are the bottom line here. You've got to tell me, how far can we go? How much do you want to shake things up? How much do you want to do things differently to
Hmm.
get noticed? The other thing I noted, I just posted on this in LinkedIn today, really depends on who you're talking to. So with executives and executive communication, it often has to be really quick. It has to be really digested, really synthesized. Okay. And I had a client recently who went to an executive presentation with 39 slides. I said, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, I would suggest 5. I would suggest put yourself, let's raise your empathy. Let's put yourself in that boss's position. This person has 20 meetings a day and really needs advice on what to say yes to and what to say no. And this is one virtue of having run a magazine. I was that person, right? I don't need the whole story. I need Just the facts, please. What's your opinion? Why is that your opinion? What happens if we do it? What happens if we don't do it? What's the cost? Right? That's what I need. The basic five. Okay. And I thought that your slide presentation with 39 slides is going to drive your boss crazy. He
Mm.
doesn't need to understand, it was a he. He doesn't need to understand how you got to this destination. You can give him that in the backstory. You can give him that in the leave behind. Okay. What he needs to know are those five basic things. So he can make a good decision. That's not the answer. I can't remember what your question was, but it's about difficult people. So I guess the answer is I will offer my opinion and you will do what you do.
Yeah, that answers the question,
You know
I
what I
think.
mean? It's like I
Right.
don't have my stakes are to make you the best you can be. Like those are table stakes for me so that you recommend me to other people.
Given that, how do you measure success? Is it if they recommend you to other people, or is it did you talk to me about that?
Well, usually they send me a very loving note. I just raised $30 million. Thank you for your help. I couldn't have done it without you. The boss wanted to see my presentation and he wanted me to copy the format for the rest of the group, blah, 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 blah. I usually hear very nice words. There's really I mean, I could do a survey and I do surveys. Usually I'll do surveys in workshops where a group of people will, and I do that for my own learning, for tuition. Like, okay, how can I make this better? How can I give you more of what you need? But usually it's pretty self-evident. I'll tell you this: no one gets worse.
That's good.
Okay? I mean, they may not go from 1 to 100, but they're not going in the other direction. So,
They're on
because
a pace.
and the reason is really simple. Okay, almost no one is taught to present in their education. Right? I mean, I went to school for probably as many years as you did, and there was very little on standing up and doing oral presentation. And it's a real shame because it really makes a difference in our screen-based world. I mean, I do a lot of work on screen because I work internationally, but I really love working in a group in a room for 4 hours straight, sometimes 8 hours. I just love it. It's just a different vibe. It's more total, more full. It's just more fun.
It certainly can be more fun, and you get that human to human interaction, which we often miss in the Zoom culture. So, Joe, where do you see yourself in the next 6, 12 months with your business looking ahead?
I'd like to be more automated. Actually, I'd like it to be more, maybe less me and more done. So like I would love that to happen, and that is going to require some investment on my part, I think. I would like to expand. I'm looking on how to expand my reach. I'm a listen. I am a boutique by choice. All right. I ran a magazine. I had 68 employees. I don't want 68 employees. I actually really like doing what I learned late in life is that I like doing the work.
Mm.
That's what really interests me. I like being the guy who helps Eamon get better at what he does. I'm not interested in being, running the command center. I want to do the work. So I'm a single operator and I want to stay that way. I'm open to collaboration with other coaches. Like sometimes I will work with other coaches, like there'll be executive coaches or life coaches, and they'll hire me to work on one aspect, and that's really useful, and I like that collaboration. And we don't interfere with each other.
That's awesome.
I'm very specific. I'm quite niche what I do here. I would like to also I've done courses on this and I'd like to make them bigger on difficult conversation, how to navigate difficult conversation. We all have them in business and in life and in love and in friendship. And I've learned a lot about how to do that. And I would like to formalize that into a course that people can work with me on and metabolize into their own lives. Really helpful information. I thought, Eamon, originally I thought I was going to create an LLM of me. Like I was going to I have all these tapes and how I work. I have hours and hours and hours and hours of that stuff. So I could feed it in and da da da. My thought was to create an LLM of me that people could take for a very low amount of money because I'm not cheap. Um, and then if they want to work with me individually, they could do that or just use the LLM to improve some basic skills. And I decided to pull back on it because I think AI technology is moving so quickly that whatever I do today, and by the time it's done in 3 or 6 months, there'll be a whole nother thing. And I don't know how to get ahead of that. I really don't know. Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna take 3 to 6 months to do something, it is possible that the technology will progress past that in that time. But you could start in a limited aspect, maybe train a GPT on one aspect of what you wanna teach, that you have, ready material that you could upload into it and just see how that goes. But that would be my best advice because your fear is a good one. Every time, if somebody gets comfortable with a piece of technology and it doesn't progress, you know, AI is progressing. They're coming out with new models every couple months. So I mean, you're right. It's a legitimate fear.
I still think
That'd
I
be
should do it. I still think it's the right idea. I just don't know really how to.
I think it is the right idea. I think, just starting small on a specific use case of what you're trying to teach. Like, I don't know if, how to optimize your presentation, and then everything that you have based on that, you could make something specific for that and see how it goes and see how long it actually takes you. Maybe it won't take you 3 to 6 months.
I was going to do first thing out of your mouth. I find that a really interesting technique, both in a presentation and in a conversation. What's the first thing out of your mouth? It sort of sets the tone.
That's incredibly interesting.
There's really like about 8 or 9 ways I've identified, maybe more at this point, of how to begin a talk that really grabs the attention of people very quick. It can be anything from stating a counterintuitive fact or telling a very quick story or using some numbers that really take you in one direction, but then you quickly you subvert it very quickly. And I also find if you're doing a media interview, first thing out of your mouth really matters.
Yeah.
Tells the audience something very quickly, like, oh, this guy's interesting. This guy isn't what I thought it was going to be. Uh, whatever it may be.
I love that both as an idea and as a concept, like really making sure the first thing out of your mouth is a hook or is interesting. That's essentially what you're getting at, right?
It is. And I ask people to really think about it really hard. I mean, you don't want to necessarily it doesn't have to be aggressive, but catch me,
Hmm.
catch me off guard a little bit.
I like that.
I think it works.
Joe, any advice for somebody who maybe just started off in their consulting or coaching journey or is thinking about, leaving their business or leaving their day job to go be a coach or consultant? Do you have any advice for those folks?
Have a bank account that you can rely on. It's not immediate in most cases. And there's ups and downs, and there are hills and valleys in terms of income and in terms of looking for work and finding work. I think try to form some habits. Try to form some habits. I'm going to do this many reach outs a day or this many cold calls, or I'm going to check in with this many people a day or a week, whatever is comfortable for you. But try to make a system for yourself. Otherwise, you can flummox and you can feel really bad you can just have to learn how to ride the waves like surfing. And, you get better at surfing by getting out there and practicing, and you get better at being a coach by coaching, yes, but getting business is really the game. It's really the game. Find a community of people who are doing similar or adjacent things and stick with them. I mean, really talk to them. How are they getting work? What do they see? What do they see coming? What's the need? I mean, the AI idea came because my clients started asking me. It's that simple. So I paid attention, right? But I think forming a habit, a ritual, a system, a framework, whatever word you want to use for it, to constrain yourself and contain yourself so that you don't go off the rails. Also, go to the gym or practice taekwondo or tennis, whatever it is you do. Make sure that you don't forget that stuff. Like you've got to take care of your mind, you got to take care of your spirit, and you got to take care of your body. And again, finding a thing that you do on the regular is really helpful.
That makes a lot of sense. Great
Are
advice.
you a coach?
I am an aspiring coach, but more of a consultant right now. So
And what are the things that you would say to an aspiring coach?
Some similar things to what you said. Make sure you have, the runway ready to go, and then make sure you're consistent, because it is an up and down road, especially in the beginning.
Yeah. But it
Yeah.
can happen anytime, the ups and the downs. I mean, that's the problem, is like you just can't game it and you can't always control it.
Hmm.
So you have to find ways to do that.
Amazing. Joe, if somebody's interested in learning more about you or reaching out to you, how can they find you and do that?
They can go on my outdated website, which is joedolce.com. It's JOEDOLCE. They could send me an email at joe@joedolce.com. That's probably the best. I mean, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. They can find me. I'm on those channels pretty regularly at this point. Um, you can find me. You found me. How did you find me?
I found you. I found you using some AI, scraping the internet, and automated reach out, actually. So
It was effective.
it was effective.
What kind of
Well,
consulting do you do?
I do AI implementations, and I do fractional C-suite.
Got it. What's your fraction?
Uh, Chief operating officer, chief marketing officer.
Gotcha. Very good. Anything else I can tell you? Anything else of interest here? Did I surprise you
No,
in any way?
this has been great. I appreciated the conversation. I appreciate you asking me questions back. Not everybody does that, so this was
Big tip
engaging.
in media training: ask the journalists some questions back.
I
It's
like
not
that.
only your job to answer the questions, but you have to, again, you be more human, right?
Hmm. I love it.
Curiosity, man.
Well, Joe, appreciate your time today, and it was a pleasure talking to you.